from Isaiah Stewart, storming off the bench to attack Miles Bridges just days ago.
And Duran is fouled, and oh my goodness. And Musa's upset. Musa's really upset.
To Ron Artest charging into the stands and throwing punches at fans 20 years before that.
Now Artest has jumped over the scorer's table and is trying to get down to the bench. Artest is in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting it.
These are the NBA games that turned into massive brawls and got over 100 players banned. Pistons versus Hornets. We're going to start with the most recent one, because this one is still fresh. The kind of fresh where the league office is probably still reviewing footage as we speak. On February 9th, 2026, the Detroit Pistons traveled down to Charlotte to face the Hornets at Spectrum Center, and what was supposed to be a marquee regular season matchup between two teams playing excellent basketball turned into absolute bedlam in the third quarter. The Pistons came into this game with a 38-13 record, one of the best in the entire Eastern Conference, led by the brilliant Cade Cunningham. The Hornets, meanwhile, were riding an incredible 9-game winning streak, fueled by the electric play of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. This was a game people were genuinely excited to watch, and for a while, it delivered exactly what it promised: hard-nosed, competitive basketball. But with 7:13 left in the third quarter, and Detroit leading 70-62, everything fell apart.
Clearly, fouling is not a problem for a good defensive team.
Jalen Duran, who had already been dominant with 15 points, received an inbound pass and drove hard to the lane. That's when Moussa Diabate committed a hard foul on him, the kind of foul that's right on the edge. And what followed was the two big men butting heads and getting face to face, chest to chest, neither one willing to back down even an inch.
And Duran is fouled, and oh my goodness. And Musa's upset. Musa's really upset.
And the commentator said it best. He had never seen Moussa Diabate like that. Nobody had. Duran shoved Diabate in the face with an open right hand, and Diabate charged right back at him, throwing a punch that missed while teammates like Tobias Harris desperately tried to hold him back. It should have ended there. It didn't.
I have never seen Moussa Diabate like this. Oh my goodness, now Miles and Duran and Beef Stew!
Miles Bridges came flying in from seemingly nowhere, landing a left-handed punch squarely on Duran. And then, perhaps the most controversial part of this entire situation, Isaiah Stewart, who wasn't even in the game, who was sitting on the bench in street clothes for all intents and purposes, rushed onto the court like a man possessed. He got to Bridges, locked him in a headlock, and started delivering multiple left-handed blows to Bridges' head.
Stewart's on the bench. Isaiah Stewart's out of the, he'll be suspended for a while. He was on the bench and he came out just to draw a fight.
The whole thing lasted. Over 30 seconds of pure pandemonium, benches clearing, coaches scrambling, security personnel flooding the court, and even brief police intervention. The crowd at Spectrum Center was stunned, a mix of boos raining down and the unmistakable sound of chaos filling the arena.
His all-star break's going to start early. And probably still be there when they start after the all-star break.
Now here's why this one carries so much weight. Isaiah Stewart, nicknamed Beef Stew, has a long, well-documented history of this kind of behavior. He charged at LeBron James in 2021 and got a 2-game suspension. He punched Drew Eubanks pregame in 2024 and received a 3-game ban. He's been ejected for flagrant fouls multiple times. The league is going to come down hard on him for leaving that bench. We're talking potentially 5 to 10 games, maybe more.
He's been suspended a number of times by the league, and that will factor in to what we're going to see.
And as for Miles Bridges, he's dealing with his own troubled history, a 30-game suspension stemming from a felony domestic violence plea in 2022, so the league is certainly not going to be lenient with him either. Pistons coach J.B. Bickerstaff defended his players after the game, saying the Hornets crossed the line out of frustration with Duran's dominance, framing Stewart's actions as simply protecting a teammate like a brother.
And now the league office will handle the rest. Good job by both teams' security to try to do their best to get this under control.
The Pistons won 110-104 with Cade Cunningham going off for 33 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists, but nobody was talking about his stat line. They were talking about the brawl, and the suspensions, those are coming. Malice at the Palace. And if the Pistons-Hornets fight was a wildfire, then what happened on November 19th, 2004 at the Palace of Auburn Hills was a full-blown nuclear meltdown. This is the one. The Malice at the Palace, the single most notorious brawl in the history of not just the NBA, but arguably all of American professional sports. This is the night that changed everything.
Then Wallace is fouled, and Wallace did. Oh, Wallace right at our chest. This has potential to be serious if they don't get between. Wallace upset. Players trying to hold.
The Indiana Pacers were playing the Detroit Pistons in an early season rematch of the previous year's Eastern Conference Finals, and Indiana was rolling. Ron Artest had 24 points, Jermaine O'Neal had a double-double with 20 points and 13 rebounds, and the Pacers held a commanding 97-82 lead with just 45.9 seconds remaining. The game was over. There was literally nothing left to play for, and then Ben Wallace attempted a layup, and Artest fouled him hard across the back of the head. Wallace did not take that well. He turned around and shoved Artest square in the face, and a scuffle broke out on the court. Officials intervened. Players and coaches tried to separate everyone, and Artest, in a genuinely bizarre move, walked over to the scorer's table and laid down on it with a headset on, trying to cool off. And that should have been the end of it. But then a fan named John Green threw a Diet Coke cup from the stands, and it hit Artest in the chest, and something snapped.
Now Artest has jumped over the scorer's table and is trying to get down to the bench. Artest is in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting it.
Artest launched himself into the stands, grabbing the wrong fan entirely, while Steven Jackson followed right behind him, punching a fan named William Paulson. Jermaine O'Neal slipped on spilled liquid on the court before recovering to punch another fan who had come onto the playing surface. Drinks, popcorn, food, and even a steel chair went flying. The chaos lasted approximately 5 minutes, involved players, fans, security, and police, and the game was called with those 45.9 seconds still on the clock. 9 spectators were injured, 2 were hospitalized. Commissioner David Stern's response was swift, severe, and historically unprecedented. 9 players were suspended for a combined 146 games, costing $11 million in lost salaries. Artest received the longest suspension for an on-court incident in NBA history, 86 games, the remainder of the entire season, including playoffs, costing him nearly $5 million. Steven Jackson got 30 games. O'Neal received 15 games on appeal. 5 Pacers players faced criminal assault charges. Fan John Green served 30 days in jail and was banned for life. The NBA responded with league-wide reforms. Alcohol sales were cut off after the third quarter, a maximum of 2 drinks per purchase was enforced, and security between players and fans was dramatically increased. The Pacers' championship aspirations were obliterated. They went from title contenders to missing the playoffs entirely within a few years. And Ron Artest, who later changed his name to Meta World Peace, carried the weight of that night for the rest of his career, even after winning a championship with the Lakers in 2010. Nuggets versus Knicks brawl. Just 2 years after the Malice at the Palace, the NBA found itself dealing with another ugly incident, this time at the most famous arena in all of basketball, Madison Square Garden.
Defensive performance is. Smith, oh, there's a flagrant 2 foul. He's going to get thrown out of the game. And now hopefully cooler heads will prevail.
On December 16, 2006, the Denver Nuggets were absolutely annihilating the New York Knicks in a game that had gotten completely out of hand. The Nuggets were up by 19 late in the fourth quarter, and Nuggets coach George Karl made the controversial decision to keep his starters in the game, which the Knicks took as a sign of profound disrespect. With just 1:15 left on the clock and Denver leading 119-100, Knicks guard Marty Collins committed a flagrant foul on J.R. Smith during a fast break, wrapping his arms around Smith's neck and sending him crashing to the floor. Smith got up and immediately confronted Collins. Nate Robinson jumped in to defend his teammate, and the situation escalated rapidly. Robinson and Smith tumbled into the photographers and front row spectators during their scuffle. And then came the moment that defined this entire incident. Carmelo Anthony walked up and threw a punch that landed flush on Marty Collins' face, dropping him. Anthony then immediately began backpedaling, retreating from the chaos he had just ignited. Knicks forward Jared Jeffries sprinted toward Anthony, but was tackled before he could reach him. All 10 players on the floor were ejected, and the NBA had another full-scale brawl on its hands. Behind the scenes, accusations swirled that Knicks coach Isaiah Thomas had warned Carmelo Anthony before the game that there would be consequences if the Nuggets kept running up the score. Karl called Thomas's alleged warning despicable and premeditated. Commissioner Stern handed down 47 total games of suspensions across 7 players, with both teams fined $500,000. Anthony's 15-game game suspension cost him roughly $640,000 in salary, and the incident temporarily tarnished his reputation. Northwest Airlines even pulled him from a magazine cover. Larry Bird versus Julius Irving. Now let's go back to the 1980s, to a time when two of the greatest players who ever lived decided that basketball wasn't enough. They needed to settle things with their fists.
And a fight between Jay and Bird has broken out on the court. And Moses Malone takes Bird down. He's got him in a headlock.
On November 9th, 1984, at the historic Boston Garden, the Celtics hosted the 76ers in a matchup of two undefeated teams. Boston was 4-0. Philadelphia was 5-0. The stakes couldn't have been higher for a November game, and Larry Bird chose that night to put on an absolute masterclass. He finished with 42 points on 17 of 23 shooting in just 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Julius Dr. J. Irving, a man who was 34 years old and watching the twilight of his legendary career approach, could manage only 6 points on 3 of 13 shooting. The disparity was embarrassing, and Bird made absolutely sure Irving knew it. According to multiple accounts, Bird spent the entire game whispering the score to Irving, taunting him with phrases like 42-6, calling him washed up and an old man. Celtics center Robert Parrish later said Bird was telling Irving there was only one man who can guard me, and that was God. With 1:38 left in the third quarter and Boston leading 95-75, the dam finally broke. After an offensive foul was called on Bird, the two legends became entangled near midcourt. Irving grabbed Bird by the throat and punches started flying. Rookie Charles Barkley held Bird from behind, while Moses Malone put Bird in a headlock and took him to the ground. Benches cleared for a 5-minute brawl between two of basketball's most iconic franchises. Both players were ejected and fined $7,500 each, the second highest fine for player conduct at the time. Remarkably, no suspensions were issued, a reflection of the era's much higher tolerance for on-court physicality. Parrish, when asked why he didn't help his teammate, gave one of the most legendary quotes in NBA history, saying, "Bird earned that ass whooping because of his relentless trash talk." By December 13th, Bird and Irving shook hands before their next meeting, putting the incident behind them. Kermit Washington versus Rudy Tomjanovich. If you're going to talk about the most violent single act in the history of the NBA, there is only one conversation to be had, and it starts and ends with what happened on December 9th, 1977. This is the incident simply known as the punch, and it nearly killed a man.
He stopped Plants, and I saw the punch coming, and Rudy was running and saw the punch coming also and threw his hands up to protect it, and of course the punch comes over it.
The Los Angeles Lakers were hosting the Houston Rockets at the Forum in Inglewood, California, and the game was tied 55-55 at halftime. In the opening minute of the third quarter, a rebound battle between Houston's Kevin Cunnert and Lakers center Kareem Abdul-Jabbar escalated into a scuffle. Kermit Washington, a Lakers power forward known as an enforcer, got involved, punching Cunnert. Rudy Tomjanovich, a 5-time All-Star, one of the nicest guys in the league by all accounts, saw the commotion and sprinted from the other end of the court to break it up. He was running in as a peacemaker. What he got instead was the most devastating punch in sports history. Washington, perceiving a threat coming at him, turned and delivered a short, devastating right hand that connected just below Tomjanovich's nose. The impact was catastrophic. Tomjanovich's face was essentially shattered. Broken nose, fractured jaw, fractured skull base, a concussion, and a dural tear that caused cerebrospinal fluid to leak into his mouth. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar later described the sound of the punch as a melon hitting concrete. Tomjanovich collapsed unconscious in a pool of blood on the court. He was hospitalized for weeks. Surgeons described rebuilding his skull as being like taping a shattered eggshell. Incredibly, Tomjanovich made a full recovery, returned to play, earned an All-Star selection in 1979, and later won 2 NBA championships as head coach of Houston. Washington was suspended 26 games and fined $10,000. Tomjanovich sued the Lakers, winning a $3.3 million settlement. Washington's career was forever stigmatized. He was traded multiple times, received racial hate mail, and retired in 1982. The punch directly led to the NBA implementing a no-punch policy with automatic ejections and adding a third referee. McHale clotheslines Rambies. The 1984 NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and Los Angeles Lakers is one of the greatest championship series ever played. 7 games, overtime thrillers, the first Bird Magic Finals matchup, and one of the most infamous hard fouls in playoff history.
Here's Kareem, outlet to Worthy, Rambis. And now let's watch it. Cooper and the the Celtics, and now the bench is empty.
After the Lakers blew out the Celtics 137-104 in Game 3, Larry Bird called his own teammates sissies in the locker room, demanding more toughness. Game 4 was his answer. With Boston trailing 76-70 in the third quarter, Kurt Rambis grabbed a defensive rebound and took off on a fast break for what looked like an easy layup. But Kevin McHale wasn't going to let that happen. He swung his forearm across Rambis' neck in midair, sending the bespectacled Lakers forward, crashing violently to the floor in what can only be described as a clothesline straight out of professional wrestling. Benches cleared. James Worthy had to restrain Rambis from retaliating. But here's the truly astonishing part. The referees called it a common foul. No technical, no ejection, no fine, no suspension, nothing. Rambis went to the free throw line, missed both attempts, and the game continued. As Rambis himself later recalled, no replay, no ejections, no fines, no nothing. That's just how basketball was played in the 1980s. Danny Ainge called the foul inspirational and one of my favorite Kevin plays ever because it galvanized the Celtics into playing with a physical edge that carried them the rest of the series. Boston won Game 4 in overtime, then won 3 of the next 4 games to claim the championship. Lakers coach Pat Riley later admitted the play changed the whole mood of physical play, vowing his teams would never be out-toughed again, an attitude that shaped the physical NBA. Rivalries of the 1990s, Knicks versus Bulls brawl. The 1994 Eastern Conference semifinals between the New York Knicks and Chicago Bulls was already a powder keg waiting to explode. Michael Jordan had retired to play baseball, and the Knicks, led by Patrick Ewing and coached by Pat Riley, saw this as their chance to finally get past Chicago. The Bulls, led by Scottie Pippen, weren't about to roll over.
Position on Grant. Grant has to commit the foul. That is his second. Now we've got a play with Harper and English. Look out. Look down into the stand. Right in my mind.
In Game 3 at Chicago Stadium, with the Bulls leading 50-40 and 2:41 left in the first half. Bulls reserve guard JoJo English elbowed Knicks starter Derek Harper. Words were exchanged, pushes escalated, and then Harper threw a punch. The two locked in a bear hug and tumbled over the sideline directly into the stands, rolling into seats just rows away from none other than NBA Commissioner David Stern himself, who was sitting courtside and watched the entire thing unfold with visible dismay. Benches cleared immediately, with about 10 players and multiple coaches piling into the chaos trying to separate them. Both Harper and English were ejected on the spot. Harper received a 2-game suspension and a $15,000 fine, English 1 game and $10,000, and 15 other players were fined $2,500 each for leaving the bench. But the drama didn't end there. After the brawl, the Bulls surged to a 22-point lead, only for the Knicks to mount a furious comeback. Patrick Ewing hit a hook shot with 1.8 seconds left to tie it at 102. And then, on the final play, Scottie Pippen refused to go back in the game because coach Phil Jackson drew up the final shot for Tony Kukoc instead of him. Pippen sat on the bench in protest. Kukoc hit the game-winning buzzer beater anyway. The Knicks would ultimately win the series in 7 games, but that Game 3 brawl, right in front of the commissioner's face, remains one of the most memorable moments in 1990s NBA playoff history. Suns versus Knicks brawl. Before the 94 Knicks-Bulls brawl, there was another fight involving Pat Riley's Knicks that actually changed the NBA's rulebook forever.
Points in the first half. Offensive foul on Doc Rivers. And here Rivers and TJ are going at it.
Barkley getting in. Miller pushing it.
On March 23, 1993, the Phoenix Suns hosted the New York Knicks in what was supposed to be a potential NBA Finals preview. The Suns were 48-15, the best record in the West, led by Charles Barkley. The Knicks were 45-18, the best defense in the East, riding a 9-game winning streak. Tensions brewed throughout the first half, with Kevin Johnson and Doc Rivers exchanging words and shoves after multiple physical plays. As the halftime buzzer sounded, Johnson delivered a shoulder blow to Rivers during a pick, and Rivers charged at him. Benches cleared, but the truly wild moment came when Greg Anthony, a Knicks guard who was injured and sitting in street clothes with a sprained ankle, walked over to the restrained Kevin Johnson and punched him in the forehead from behind. That sucker punch turned a shoving match into a full-scale melee. A 12-player dogpile formed. Pat Riley tried to grab Johnson, but ended up ripping his own pants in the process, and security had to separate players in the hallway afterward when Anthony and Johnson nearly went at it again. The NBA fined 21 players a combined $160,500, the largest amount for a single incident at the time. Anthony received a 5-game suspension for his involvement from the bench while in street clothes, and this incident directly led to one of the most consequential rule changes in NBA history, the leaving the bench rule, which automatically suspends any player who leaves the bench area during an altercation. That rule would come back to haunt the Suns themselves in 2007, when Amare Stoudemire and Boris Diaw were suspended for stepping onto the court during the playoff series against the Spurs, a suspension many believe cost Phoenix their best shot at a championship. Alonzo Mourning versus Larry Johnson. The late 1990s Heat-Knicks rivalry was as nasty, personal, and genuinely hostile as any rivalry the NBA has ever seen, and the 1998 first-round playoff series between the two teams produced one of the most iconic brawl images in league history.
And fists are flying at the other end. Larry Johnson is one of them. Here we go. Oakley and Mourning have at each other.
Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson weren't strangers. Far from it. They had been teammates on the Charlotte Hornets from 1992 to 1995, and their relationship had been complicated from the start. Johnson, the #1 pick in 1991, reportedly taunted Mourning during his rookie year. As Mourning's star rose and Johnson's body broke down from back injuries, the dynamic shifted. Both were eventually traded, Mourning to Miami, Johnson to New York, setting them on a collision course. In the closing seconds of Game 4, with the Knicks leading 90-85, Mourning and Johnson became tangled while boxing out under the basket. Johnson appeared to elbow Mourning, prompting both men to start swinging, though neither landed anything clean. Benches cleared immediately, and in the ensuing chaos, Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy rushed in to try to separate them. What happened next became one of the most replayed images in NBA history. Van Gundy, all 5'9" of him, grabbed onto Mourning's leg and was literally dragged across the hardwood as the 6'10" Mourning continued moving, completely oblivious to the coach clinging to his ankle. Patrick Ewing later called it the funniest thing I've ever seen in sports. Both Mourning and Johnson received 2-game suspensions. Chris Mills got 1 game for leaving the bench. The penalties hurt Miami significantly. Without Mourning in Game 5, the Heat fell apart, and the 7th-seeded Knicks pulled off the upset, advancing with a 98-81 blowout victory. The Mourning-Johnson beef was more about competitive fire than genuine hatred. Johnson himself later wrote that it was all about a competitive mindset rather than personal animosity. But for one brief moment in April 1998, with a coach being dragged across the floor by his ankle, it sure looked personal. Shaquille O'Neal versus Charles Barkley. And finally, we end on a fight that somehow produced one of the greatest friendships in sports media history.
Lakers are trying to get out and break now, but
on November 10th, 1999, the Los Angeles Lakers visited the Houston Rockets at the Compaq Center. Shaq was 27, entering his prime under Phil Jackson. Barkley was 36 in his final NBA season, frustrated with a winless Rockets team. Early in the second quarter, with the Lakers leading 30-26, Barkley drove to the basket and had his shot blocked by O'Neal, then was fouled by Brian Shaw. After the whistle, O'Neal bumped Barkley on the head and shoved him. Barkley's response? He picked up the basketball and hurled it directly at Shaq's face. O'Neal threw a glancing left punch in return, but Barkley, using every ounce of the leverage and toughness that had made him an MVP, lifted the 7'1", 325-pound O'Neal off the ground and flipped him to the floor, landing a few shots as they grappled. Teammates rushed in to separate the two giants. Both were ejected, and each received a 1-game suspension. O'Neal was fined $10,000 for the punch, Barkley $5,000 for throwing the ball. After the game, O'Neal said Barkley did one of his Charles Barkley-like stupid things. Barkley fired back with one of the greatest quotes in NBA fight history. "I can't let him hit me and get away with it. My grandma would be mad at me if I let him get away with it." But here's where the story gets genuinely heartwarming. Their mothers, Lucille O'Neal and Charcy Glenn, were best friends. After the fight, during halftime of a subsequent game, Lucille called Shaq and handed the phone to Charcy, who told both of them, "Y'all need to stop." The moms arranged a hallway meeting where Shaq and Barkley hugged it out and squashed the beef entirely. Years later, Barkley joined TNT's Inside the NBA, and O'Neal followed in 2011. Their on-air chemistry has won multiple Emmy Awards. Barkley would later joke about the fight, saying, "It was an NBA fight, so we fought like girls and it didn't last very long. I'm glad nobody got hurt because he's a great friend." From a fight on the court to two of the most beloved media personalities in all of sports, you genuinely can't script something better than that. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.